right, and welcome to Illini Drive. I am Jake Hasan. We are here today with our not usual crew. Today it is me, but also Nathan DeHaan's here. But we have two guys in studio. It is Gavin Good and Jared Farmer. How are you two doing, guys? First time on this year. What's going on?
Oh, I am excellent. It's been too far of a drought between Gavin Good appearances on Illini Drive.
What's good, Jake? First appearance here. I'm just happy to be here.
Love to hear that. So today we're going to be talking some football. Gavin is the main writer for the football team, along with Tati, who you all know from the Tuesday, Thursday crew. But going up against Penn State on Friday, obviously coming off that tough loss to USF last Saturday at Soldier Field. So my question to you, Gavin, is what do you expect this Friday going into Penn State? Obviously a ranked team, they're a top 10 team, after what you saw on Saturday.
Well, on Saturday there was a lot of encouraging signs, to be honest. Sure, the Illini didn't, pull it together in the end and come out with what would have been the win of the Lovie Smith era, probably. But I'm expecting the team to, bring some of that same confidence that they played with and that they have been playing with this year in a game where they've really got nothing to lose against Penn State. They're a 4-touchdown underdog. No one's expecting Illinois to win this game. It's going to be an interesting atmosphere at Memorial Stadium, at least. I mean, I'm sure Penn State's going to they always bring a lot of fans, so it should make for an interesting game. And, we don't know if those suspended players are going to be back, but they have been taking normal reps now instead of scout team reps this week in practice.
Word on the street is they'll be back on Friday. I mean, so how much better does getting those guys back make this Illinois team? I mean, because the opening line is 28 points. The Illini are underdogs. So, I mean, do you see that as a feasible margin of Penn State victory, even with getting these guys back, Hobbs and Bennett Williams especially, getting them back in the secondary?
Yeah, I still agree with the line, I would say, even with these guys coming back. But I think they are going to make a very, very tangible difference. I think if you had one of Bennett Williams and Nate Hobbs back last week, I don't think some of those second half coverage breakdowns would have happened, and Illinois probably would have won the game. You could say the same thing on the offensive end for Lou Dorsey. Maybe they would have, had some longer sustained drives and actually been able to get into the end zone instead of having to rely so much on trusty Chase McLaughlin. But I don't think that those guys' returns are gonna, make Illinois suddenly competitive with Penn State. I just don't see that. But it's definitely a good thing for the team's morale, and it definitely competitively it helps Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, Bennett Williams was first team All-Big in his freshman year last year.
He was an All-American, too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously getting him back is huge. We said this on Monday with our normal group that if you have Bennett Williams and Nate Hobbs back, you win the USF game because that busted covers the 50-yard on that 3rd and 20. You don't give that up, and you probably win the game. So, obviously, still the other storyline is that A.J. Bush, still no word on him. I mean, do you see him playing in this game? I think you have to play him because we said this on Monday, too, that MJ Rivers, he's been good. I mean, no disrespect to him. He's been really awesome in backup duty and doing what he's been doing. But, I mean, we said A.J. Bush probably makes that throw at the end to Ricky Smalling in the back of the end zone and probably a couple other throws that they don't yet trust MJ to make. So you have to play him this week, right?
I mean, you play him if he can play, and it seems like he probably could have played last week, but they wanted to be a little bit cautious with him. So I mean, I would expect AJ Bush to be playing on Friday, unless they've not really let on how serious that injury that he has is. This team does a pretty good job of keeping injuries on the down low, and I just think it is going to be pretty hard for them to keep a guy like A.J. Bush off the field. He's definitely the guy that gives you the best chance to win, as compared to M.J. Rivers, who has done a good job for a true freshman quarterback in his time so far. But yeah, I really expect Bush. I would expect Bush to play and probably start.
Right. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, obviously going into this Penn State game, number 10 ranked opponent. I mean, one, do you think that the guys potentially getting them back, the suspended players, makes you a better team, gives you a better chance than you had? And do you see it being closer than 28 points? And then B, do you think A.J. Bush plays, and does he have to play to even give you a chance?
To your first point, I mean, I don't think there's any arguing that getting the suspended players back greatly helps this defense. And it's something that you're really going to need against a powerful Big Ten opponent like Penn State. I still think Illinois loses. I still think it's not really close. What I'm most curious about for this game is how the Illinois defense does because of how high octane this Penn State offense is. I'm looking at their past games: 45 against Appalachian State, 51 against Pitt, 63 against Kent State. I want to see this Illinois defense play at their top performance level, because I want to see if Penn State's offense is just playing, rolling over the teams that they should roll over, or if this is the real deal, if this is a college football playoff competitor. And I think that they are, because I think that Trace McSorley is the real deal. I think, and their schedule is pretty tough. After Illinois, they have Ohio State and Michigan State. Luckily, both at home, but back-to-back weeks, and then Michigan later on down the road. But I think that this is their first real test, and I think that is kind of bold to say as an Illinois fan that we are testing them, because they'll still probably win by at least 4 touchdowns, is what the line is saying. Yeah. But I think this is the bookmark. I think this is where, okay, the season, we're now in Big Ten football. How good is this offense actually?
Yeah, and then AJ Bush. If he comes back, how much does he raise your team up that much?
And that's another thing that I don't really know if I have a firm grasp on, because AJ Bush, the one full game that we saw of him, there was a bad half and there was a good half. And then everything that we've seen of MJ Rivers has been pretty complete, other than, like you said, a few mistakes that you would expect a grad transfer quarterback like AJ Bush to make later on in the game against USF. But for the most part, we've seen only pros that are the freshmen, and then we've seen kind of half and half from AJ Bush. If he comes back, I think that he's our starter and he's the man to go to, and there isn't any quarterback controversy by any means. But I want to see him put together a complete game, and it's going to be tough against a Penn State defense that has let up 6 and 10 points in the past 2 weeks.
Jared, you said before the show that you're not really a guy that follows football as closely as some of us.
Not exactly.
But so, as a casual fan, what is your confidence level going into this Penn State game? Knowing that they're the 10th ranked team in the nation, as Nathan just listed off all the points they've scored in the last few weeks, and then watching Illinois.
Well, knowing just as background knowledge how good Penn State is as a program, I wasn't going in expecting Illinois to win this game anyway. Yeah. I don't feel as though they'll lose by 4 touchdowns per se. Maybe that's just the fan in me, optimist, the home bias. But I guess I would expect it to be filled with Penn State fans going to the game. So having to deal with probably all the cheering and seeing the team lose by as many points as they probably would lose by.
That's another thing that I'm curious about with this being a Friday night game. Mm-hmm. So that's going to make it harder for Penn State to travel.
Right.
It's also, Illinois doesn't necessarily have this home field advantage with the way that sort of the students view the football games.
It's always been in question how many students show up to each game.
And I don't know if the Friday night almost even is getting taken away even more because of high school football that's been going on, which is honestly pretty large around this area. Yeah. And people, growing up around this area, I know very much so that the schedule on Fridays always include going to the football games. Right. Even if you're the most casual fan or just go to the school, or your parents come with you because you go to the school. I don't know. I really don't think the stadium's going to have anybody in it. And that's going to hurt Illinois a lot because, like you said, Penn State travels well. And I know Friday night's going to make it harder for the students with class on Friday and figuring out how to get all the way from Happy Valley here. But I think it's going to be a bad look on Fox Sports 1 to have that Memorial Stadium, 15% full.
One thing I did like that Illinois did do that I think might get it at least more than half full is they scheduled a bunch of local high school games for Saturday at Memorial Stadium. I know St. Thomas is playing there. I think Urbana's playing there, and then 2 maybe Central.
This is the first time hearing it.
Yeah. Oh no, it's happening. There's going to be 4.
I believe
there's 4 games on Saturday, so hopefully that won't take away as much as it otherwise would, because Nathan's got a good point. High school football is ingrained in this local culture around here in Central Illinois. People get excited about their high school football.
So I'm assuming that the Illinois football program or Josh Whitman's office, whoever, cut some kind of deal because they knew that would be an issue. Yeah. But I mean, the thing I wanted to bring up was the Saturday before against Western, Gavin, me and you were there. That section was filled, I think, more than we thought it would be on a Saturday night. Yeah, the student section especially.
It's at least 80% full.
I mean, 85, and I would even say possibly 90, and they stayed.
Oh, don't you dare say 90. The games on Saturday are Peoria Notre Dame versus Centennial, Olympia versus Unity, Bloomington versus Urbana, and St. Thomas More versus Rantoul.
So that helps a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine because, I imagine that the Illinois football program knew, like, hey, we got to get this. I mean, this is going to be an issue because if more Penn State fans are there than Illinois fans, that's a tough look.
That's a bad look. Like Nathan said on Fox Sports 1, 2, that's a bad look.
Right.
Yeah, this is our first nationally televised game.
Right.
I don't know. Is Fox Sports 1 considered nationally televised?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I don't know, there's certain packages that don't carry it, but yeah, first nationally televised game that we're not watching on Big Ten alternate on some package that you have to get Big Ten games.
Plus or something.
Right. So that's also something that I'm curious about is nationally, people have been saying Lovey's on the hot seat, which all of us nearby know is not true.
Yeah,
That's not true.
We could talk about that later.
It's not true, but then this is going to be the first nationally televised game, and then I'm going to have to sit here and listen to national pundits talk about how Lovey Smith is not producing anything at the University of Illinois, and look how bad they looked against Penn State. This is year 3. Where's the improvement? And I'm going to sit there and have to plug my ears and be like, you clearly don't know anything about what's going on here in Champaign-Urbana, because everyone is backing Lovey. Everyone on campus, I think, realizes that there is change happening. And then we're sitting here on the show talking about maybe being bowl eligible. And that's something that would not be happening under Bill Cubitt or anybody before.
It's so crazy, like you said, to hear that like people say, oh, Lovey's on the hot seat. This is year 3. I mean, when you go to a rebuilding program, and I mean, you usually don't even expect marginal improvement until year 3. So, I mean, yeah, he's an NFL head coach, and you expect, I mean, maybe an accelerated improvement, but still, like, not even halfway through year 3 yet, and you're saying that this guy might get fired. That seems crazy to me. But I mean, still, it's a bad look if Penn State comes in here and they're wondering if this is actually Memorial Stadium in here, and it's like a whiteout in here, because that's crazy. I mean, that's you can't. I mean, that's a really tough look if that happens.
I sure hope that students see this as an opportunity of going to a game, and then you can have your whole Saturday to yourself if that's what you want. And,
you can still go to block.
Exactly. And you can still go to block or whatever. But I hope that there's a decent amount of students that come out that are curious. First Big Ten game, good opponent, maybe a potential national title contender as an opponent. So a chance to go see them, even if you're not there, fully because of Illinois football.
Right.
At least you're there, because that's the culture that needs to change, specifically in football, a little bit in basketball, is that students need to start backing this team. Yeah. And I remember I was talking to the director of fan and marketing last semester for an assignment I was on, and I asked her, I said, what comes first, the winning on the field or the fans in the stands? And she goes, what needs to happen first is the fans in the stands, because when we're bringing recruits in here, and we're saying, here's Illinois football, and make sure to bring them to the Rutgers and the Purdue game, and not the Penn State game, but they need to see a stadium that has people that want to watch them play, because
people will cheer for them.
Exactly, because they're going to turn around and go to Nebraska, who is off to it's 0-3, isn't it? No,
0-2.
0-2 start.
0-2, yeah, I think. It might be 0-3.
But their stadium's going to be sold out, and it looks like it's going to be more fun to play there. So that's
you say they're
0-2 because their opener against Akron, Giant Killers Akron, the Akron Zips, defeaters of Northwestern, was postponed week 1. I think something positive here is that the athletic department really seems to be aware of the problem that Illinois sports is having, and that's drawing and sustaining student and just regular fan interest. I mean, what was it? It was free student tickets against Western,
yeah.
And that helped. Look, the people responded. It looked all right, and that was a very good thing too, because there were not many non-student fans at that game. Right. That was a less than half full Memorial Stadium. And then this weekend, Friday night, against number 10 Penn State, $10 student tickets. That's a pretty good deal. You can't get that anywhere else.
Right.
In the Big Ten,
I feel like that's not a bad deal. I feel like they are trying to do more to get the students more involved, especially like you said, Gavin, with the recruits coming in. You obviously want to show them something that the fans are coming out and cheering for them. I mean,
yeah, remember they had the Louis the Child concert last year was that the North? That wasn't the North Carolina game. That was 2 years ago. We played.
It was also the Big Ten opener, though, right?
I think it might have been.
The marketing department is doing their job and
they're
to
pulling
bring
out all
people
the
in.
stops.
They got another EDM guy. I don't listen to EDM, but they got some
Yeah,
EDM
I
dude
don't either.
opening.
Yeah.
I listen to Lewis
Egg
Child.
Grove.
I don't listen to EDM.
Yeah, I mean, whatever they can do to try and get people out there. I mean, whatever works. I mean, Nathan, you brought up the North Carolina game. I think that's a really good point because fans came out for that game too.
That was the first year of Lovie Smith era. We were 2-0 because we played two cupcake teams, and we were
it was
and
brutal
and
game.
Mitch Trubisky tore us apart.
Trubisky this season.
And I remember being in the student section for that game and just being like, oh,
Well, that was a
remember?
Friday night game too, I think, right?
you're right.
And so I feel like they're gonna, because this is the same thing. It's like beginning of September. It's still not that like cold out. I think people will be more inclined to come, and if they do, I mean, you can't always say that a team or home field advantage like will flip the tide for a team. But I mean, look what it did for the Seattle Seahawks. Look for what it does for teams like at bigger pro, like Alabama,
Penn State.
like Georgia, Penn State. Like I think it does help. So I feel like if the students come out, like that definitely gives the team some more motivation to kind of come out and play hard in this game. Plus the return of the suspendees. Plus, I mean, hopefully you get a couple guys back from injury. Ricky Smalling played on Saturday. Hopefully he's feeling a little bit better. Get a couple guys. Maybe Tony Adams gets that club off his hand. So I do we give Illinois? I think they cover 4 touchdowns. I think 28 points is kind of high, especially given that you get Hobbs and Williams back.
let's do score prediction.
Okay, we'll go around the room, say a score prediction real quick, and then we'll wrap up this segment before we take a break. I think it's going to be, I think this is classic Big Ten football. I'm going to say 28-17 Penn State. I think the Illinois defense plays better. They've looked better every week. Penn State has been they've put up a lot of points, but those haven't been against great teams. So I think the Illinois defense kind of steps up this week, knowing that they're going up against a pretty good Penn State offense.
I hate to disagree because I really want to give Illinois the benefit of the doubt, especially with seeming like Hobbs
I'm being
and
very
Williams are gonna be
generous
back.
with that. To only have them lose by 11 points, I'm being extremely generous.
Jake's just mad that everybody predicted a shootout last week, and I was right about the 20s to teens matchup.
We did.
Yeah, I don't have that much faith in this team. One thing I think works in Illinois' favor is Penn State didn't show up their first week against App State. And they went to OT. And they got Ohio State next. So in the back of their minds, they're going to be thinking, we need to take care of business this week, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure they're going to be hyped to play. But, Ohio State, number 4 in the country right now.
Right. That's
It's
a
be a
huge
great
game.
Definitely gonna
At the end of the day, I think this might be an interesting game early, in the first half.
Right.
But I think Penn State pulls away and wins 42-17. No one's kept them under 45 points so far this year, and I don't think Illinois is about to be the first team to do that either.
Well, you just said 42, so they would do that.
Oh yeah, you're right. Illinois is about to be the first team to keep Penn State under 45
Still,
points,
42
but
points
barely.
is a lot. Yeah. So 42-17 from Kevin.
I'm very similar with how much Penn State's going to score. I think their offense is octane. I think that the Trace McSorley is the real deal. And Illinois is great against the rush, but we haven't really showed that we're, that great against the pass. I know that we got our suspended players back. I'm going 42-13.
Allegedly get the players back.
Allegedly.
Word on the street is.
I'm 42-13.
They won't confirm.
Right. Obviously. They never do. 42-13 from Nathan. Jared, what do you got?
All right. I'm gonna take a little bit of a shot in the dark and guess.
Love it.
I'm going to say 49-14 Penn State.
49-14. Okay.
Yeah.
That's feasible. I mean, that's still, we all have them covering the 28 points because I think 28 points is giving a lot less credit to Illinois than they deserve. Is there any scenario that this Illinois team wins?
Trace McSorley gets hurt.
Do you think that's it? That's the only.
No, I think.
And what needs to happen for Illinois to win this game?
I think that we need AJ Bush to be playing and for him to just be making throws that we haven't seen made by an Illinois quarterback since Shieldhouse. I think we need a passing offense that complements the rushing offense, and if we can keep that Penn State defense on their toes, like that we pointed out, they haven't really seen an offense as good of Illinois yet, and we also need the studs on defense that we hopefully are getting back, or the ones that are already there, to really step up. And I need to see Hasan all over the field, and I need to see Roundtree with all sorts of pressure from the edge.
I definitely think it's possible that Illinois wins. It's possible, but I don't think it happens without stellar offensive line play. And this is a unit that has faced nothing like this Penn State defense. I expect them to get outclassed, but Kendrick Green had a good week last week, and I mean, there's some promise on this offensive line. I mean, they looked good rushing off the left side off Green and Vidarian Lowe last week. So I think that's where it all starts and ends, because AJ Bush, MJ Rivers, whoever it is, they need time to make some plays, and the receivers are going to need some time to get open against a quality defense. So I think it all comes down to how long can Illinois protect the quarterback for.
Yeah, I think that for Illinois, I think like Nathan said, it has to be AJ Bush. He has to come back so he's fully healthy, run like we saw him run against Kent State, throw some deep balls that we know he can make. We haven't seen yet, but we know he can make. We need to see that playbook open the entire time. I'm going to throw another thing in there on offense. Epstein needs to be heavily involved because we saw what he could do this past week against USF. The dude's a playmaker. I mean, he's just an electric factory. I've said that before, and I'll probably say it many more times throughout the rest of the season. He's just absolutely electric. Whenever he touches the ball, he's a threat. So I think he has to be heavily involved. And then the defense. I think Bennett Williams and Nate Hobbs need to show that they haven't missed a step, because honestly, it's probably not that likely, but they're going to have to step in and play like we know they can play right away, because Penn State's a huge test to come back off a 3-game layoff from. I mean, so that's no easy task. Do I think they can do it? Yeah, I think they have the talent, but a lot of things are going to have to come together at once for this to be a win, even a close game, much less a win. So, all right, that was kind of disappointing. I think we all know it's a realistic view, because we know where this team is at. We know where Penn State's at. I mean, they lost Saquon Barkley to the draft. They lost a bunch of other guys to the draft, and it looks like they haven't missed a beat. I mean, it's really speaks volumes to what they're doing there. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hit Illinois volleyball. They had a really good weekend, as we mentioned a little bit on Monday. Looking forward to their upcoming set of games. We'll hit some NBA news, some NFL news, and then our locks of the week when we come back right after this on Illini Drive. And we are back. Gavin Good had a prior commitment, so he had to step out. But thanks. Wow, words again. I don't know what is my issue these last couple of weeks. But big thanks to Gavin for stopping in to talk football with us. As I mentioned, he's the Daily Illini, one of the two primary columnists for football here. So
a lot of good insight.
Yeah, I mean, Gavin really knows that team well, so he really does his homework there. But we're gonna do a quick shout out to volleyball. We briefly mentioned them on Monday. Number 8 in the nation. They are very, very good. They are arguably the best sport on campus. As we've mentioned before, they went to the Sweet 16 last year. Head coach Chris Thomas, friend of the show, is just leading this team. I mean, they just continue to do well. Jordan Poulter, Ellie Bastianelli, they are just leading this team. It's incredible what they're doing. We've said it before. Go to Huff Hall, watch them play. They are really, really, really good. Unfortunately, they didn't move up the rankings this week because no one in front of them lost, but the teams in front of them are unbelievable. There's a lot of Big Ten teams in these rankings, folks. I mean, Illinois is 8, but ahead of them is Minnesota, Wisconsin, Penn State, and Nebraska just from the Big Ten. So, I mean, that's unbelievable. But within the next 2 weeks, the Illini volleyball team will be playing Wisconsin and Nebraska both, so a chance to move up there.
Sounds like whoever the Big Ten produces, I think has a very realistic shot at the national championship this year,
absolutely.
because you're going to spend an entire, conference schedule just playing, heavy hitters after heavy hitters.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's going to be a survival of the fittest. Whoever comes out of the Big Ten, I would feel confident in their ability to play good team after good team in the tournament set.
Steel sharpens steel. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, they're just.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. Words aren't hard sometimes. Sometimes it just works. But shout out to them. Really great. Go watch them. They are unbelievable. But we're going to move on to some national news. And Jared, now he can let it loose because this is right up his alley. Coming out the news today that Jimmy Butler wants out of Minnesota. He wants to go to. And hold on to your hats for this list because it is something. The Los Angeles Clippers, the New York Knicks, and the Brooklyn Nets. So that's quite a list. I mean, it's something. It sure is something. We can say that without a doubt.
Certainly. The other interesting thing, like the interesting tidbit about the Knicks, in terms of a trade destination, personally, I don't know why New York would engage Minnesota in that trade, just because I feel as though trading for Jimmy Butler in their current timeline, because Porzingis is injured, right? So
Right. He might
he's
miss
got
the entire next season, I believe.
Probably going to miss the entire season. So, I mean, that is your perfect opportunity to just let all your young guys be as bad as possible. Just get a free draft
get that draft
pick.
pick, you know.
So them trying to aggressively pursue a trade with Jimmy Butler, personally, I don't see. The Knicks organization has been known to make questionable decisions, so
James
I wouldn't.
Dolan.
Yeah, so I wouldn't
Everything about Phil
entirely-
Jackson.
True.
Yeah, I wouldn't entirely put it past them. I do think the Clippers are a pretty solid place for him to land.
I think it's interesting.
You know, Doc Rivers is still there, solid coach. They've got a very solid front office. Jerry West definitely knows what he's doing.
I don't know their building blocks off the top of my head, but I mentioned off here Tobias Harris. I mean, he's
Harris.
a good. I believe he's going into his second or third year. He was. He's a younger
He's
player.
actually been in the league for a
Has
pretty
he?
decent amount of time. I'm pretty
I
sure.
think it's
yeah.
like I don't think you're far off. I think it's like 4 or 5.
It's-
Well, I know someone offered them like 2 first-round picks for him recently. I think so. I mean, he's a good player. They have a couple guys to build around there. I think LA at least makes the most sense. The Knicks make sense, like you said, if they want to tank, and then you could pair Jimmy Butler with Kevin Knox and James Porzingis. That was weird. Kristaps Porzingis
Yeah.
and Enes Kanter's still a solid center. So that makes sense to me. But the one that doesn't make sense to me is the Nets. That's just such a weird place to want to go.
I honestly agree with you because Brooklyn is just in a perpetual state of dysfunction and just
Right.
has been. Like, I think this is the first year that they actually have a draft pick now.
Yeah, and
Like
I don't think
it's
it's a first round pick either. Still, I don't think they have a first round pick for like another 2 years.
Yeah. So I mean,
The Nets lost everything when they went all in on the former
On the
Celtics.
former
On Kevin Garnett and Darren Williams and like
Paul Pierce, and Jason Terry, I think was a part of that.
yeah, and
The Nets had to be that team that was happiest to see that list come out, which is also something funny. Which also
they should be jumping for joy.
Something that was funny about that list coming out is The Athletic is the one that broke the news about Jimmy Butler wanting a trade, and so just when everybody was like, "Man, like, where's the Woj bomb? Like, how come like Woj isn't the one dropping the news?" And then Woj like just one ups them right after that and says like, "Yeah, and the 3 teams he wants to be traded to are these 3."
Yeah,
and it's
I
like,
mean-
by the way, I'm still the freaking man.
Yeah, I mean, he's,
definitely Woj
Yeah.
is just gonna, in terms of like breaking news, just has a freaking monopoly all over. Like, I mean,
and there's no better sport of free agency for him to have
Yeah,
that monopoly over, because there's no sport that has the excitement around free agency like NBA does.
and I mean, Shams can one up him here and there, like as much as he wants to, but it's just I feel like a Woj bomb is just too iconic. Like that's just the one you're looking for.
How do you pronounce the Clippers draft pick from this year?
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander
Yeah,
from
Arizona.
Kentucky,
No, he's from
I
Kentucky,
believe.
I think,
Yeah.
I remember reading on draft boards about how he could be one of those steals of the draft.
Yeah,
because
I remember reading
he's
that
because
as
he's
well.
because he's long, he's athletic, he's got lots of room to grow, but they saw a lot of potential in his combine and his his time at Kentucky. I don't know. I have heard the rumors of Jimmy Butler wanting to pair up with Kyrie Irving in New York from my buddy Peter for a long time, and he's very up to date on NBA, and he'll be the one that like sends me the trade rumors, or like the one that'll text me
NBA trade machine.
Yeah,
He puts through.
Is this successful?
Yeah, based
That's all
only
that
on
matters.
salary. Yeah.
But he's been the one that's been telling me this, and now that I see that list, I mean, 2 New York teams, and if they want to team up so badly, I don't know why Kyrie would leave the Celtics, especially when I think this year is a year that they not just obviously are the favorites in the East, but like a lot of people are already giving the championship to the Warriors, but you forget a Celtics team that has that talent, that has that starting
I mean, they
lineup.
went to Game 7 against LeBron with
Cleveland
with
without-
Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving
Yeah.
both. I mean, pretty much on the back of Jason Tatum.
Do you remember
In his rookie year.
Remember when Jason Tatum dunked all over LeBron and then like bumped him?
Jason
Did the
Tatum's
trash
only
talk and
19.
everything.
People forget that.
Jason, and what I don't like is that, okay, and I get that if this weren't to be the case, you'd have to sit somebody that deserves a starting spot, but Jason Tatum at the 4,
Yeah.
like
I actually think that
he's gonna get bodied around all the time though.
I feel like this
Jason
is
Tatum's a pretty big dude. He spent a lot of minutes at the 4 listen, I only know this because I happen to follow some like Boston sports guys on Twitter through like podcasts and stuff that I listen to. But I mean, Jason Tatum's kind of a big dude. Like he's not small, and I believe I saw that he put on some weight this offseason.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 6'8". So I mean,
obviously he's not a small dude. He's a big dude, but he. The NBA fours are also pretty big dudes, and dudes that came into the league as big as he is now. Whereas he has worked his way up to now he's going to spend his second year going from shooting guard, point guard to playing the four and having I don't know.
I think Tatum was playing mostly
he was more of a small forward.
Yeah, I think he was playing mostly three. I think the way, and plus, I mean. Jaylen Brown can play some four a little bit too.
I almost prefer Jaylen Brown.
You also do have to keep in mind that Brad Stevens was spending the majority of the playoffs with Marcus Morris playing a lot of time.
Who played well though,
and very well, yeah, too. I might add, and he's typically a small forward, so I figure that in the grand scheme of things, Brad Stevens has defensive matchups to accommodate for that.
Brad Stevens is just that guy that just gets the most out of like these, like a Marcus Morris,
Definitely.
Terry Rozier, like
Marcus Smart.
Marcus Smart. I mean, even, and you forget, I mean, he's getting Gordon Hayward back, who can also play the four.
Dude, and he's getting his favorite player from his college years back.
Right, exactly.
I think that was the thing that broke my heart the most about the Gordon Hayward timeline was because now Gordon Hayward entering his prime is going back to his old coach that took this like abysmal Butler program to national title games.
Right to the top.
And Gordon Hayward was that focal point. And so how excited does he have to be to get, I mean, the Jazz are doing great now, even without Gordon Hayward, but to get out of there, go to a great sports town of Boston, have your old coach, and then the first game.
Yeah.
A gruesome injury
One
on national
bucket and
television.
Already.
But the thing was, at the end of last season, he was already like shooting and running and doing stuff. So I think that gives you a lot of confidence now. He's had the whole summer to continue rehabbing. I think he comes back. You put him. I mean, I think it was their starting lineup was potentially Kyrie with Smart and Brown and Tatum, and then Hayward at the five, like their own lineup of death, with their own lineup of death, like the Warriors have. Because when they play Iguodala or Draymond at the five, like that matches up pretty decently. And then that's putting Al Horford on the bench then. Like, who's still really good.
Do you
too.
think they could run that lineup when they play somebody like the Warriors?
Yes,
though
I think they absolutely could.
Because that's one thing. Although I don't necessarily like moving somebody that I feel like should be backcourt or a three down to the four because of the big bodies of the NBA. Something that I do know is that with small ball becoming a more regular thing, if another team's going to run a small ball lineup, the Celtics will be like, bet. Here's our small ball lineup.
I think that works. I think that works really well because I think Kyrie's quick enough to keep up with Steph. I think Smart's good enough to keep up with Klay Thompson. Then you have Brown, Tatum, and Hayward to go with Kyrie or to go against Durant. I think all of them are very capable defenders. I think probably Tatum's your best guy on him, but
Gordon Hayward's really good defender.
But I mean, I think Tatum's just a bit quicker. I think he's got that bigger body in case Durant wants to kind of go try and make some moves in the post, but. I mean, the Celtics look really good. And we kind of got off track. Why would Kyrie leave that? I think is a big issue. But I mean, if money is what he wants, because he got a ring. He's got a ring already. If he wins one this year, that's really, if he wants to go and build his own team with Jimmy Butler, I don't really blame him because even if he does leave, the Celtics have more than enough to
Boston will definitely be fine.
They'll be okay.
with or without Kyrie.
He certainly makes them better, but they'll definitely be just fine.
I just think he has it so sweet right now because he left the Cavaliers specifically because he wanted to be the best player on his team. Right now he has that, but he's not the best player by much, which is probably the best case scenario because he has the supporting cast like we're talking about that is so great. And then if he went to, team up with Jimmy Butler, he probably would still be the best player on his team because I think he's the second best point guard in the NBA and I think he's a top 10 player. But I just don't like you said, like I've been saying and like we've been saying, I just don't know why because things are so good.
Right.
But this is about Jimmy Butler. Why are the Nets on there? Why
the same reason he wants to be the guy on his team
for the Nets?
And I
agree with you. For the Nets, questionable.
In the wake of the Kawhi Leonard situation with him being in Toronto and with that not being cleared up, personally, if I'm Jimmy Butler, I'm looking at that situation and how they were talking about, LeBron and Paul George and Kawhi supposed to be teaming up to make this big bad three. If I'm Jimmy Butler personally, I'm hitting up the reps to see if, Magic Johnson wants to try and work out a trade for something, because I feel like, him and LeBron have similar types of work ethics, and I feel like bouncing off of each other would be better for him. And I think for LeBron personally, because he likes to have, more. I'm not going to say necessarily like more experienced guys, because I mean last year he had J.R. Smith and all these other
more
veterans
talented.
in the
I mean,
league.
that's just better players.
Better players.
I think, is it fair to say that players don't want to play with LeBron? Because think of it this way: go back through the history. Kyrie wanted out with LeBron. Paul George, everyone thought, all right, he's going to the Lakers. LeBron goes there, he's like, maybe not. Kawhi Leonard, everyone's like, oh, he wants to go to the Lakers. LeBron goes there, I don't want to go there anymore. And now he's saying, I might prefer the Clippers. So is it fair to say that
LeBron James also buried Kevin Love's career? Kevin Love was Kevin Love was putting up ridiculous numbers with the Timberwolves. I know it's part of playing, like not being the guy.
That was my point. I think his game changed,
but also
a lot.
I think so too. But like, I feel like that's part of playing with LeBron,
right?
You can't be your own guy, just like what Kyrie wanted.
That was going to be my point. The NBA, I feel like, is a big league of personal brands now. Yeah. From shoe deals to clothing lines to even, I mean, you got guys like Damian Lillard making music, good music. It's pretty good.
Check it out.
The 4-bar Fridays that he does.
Yeah. So
it's good.
I mean, all these NBA players. I think NBA players are the most. I mean, I think they have the biggest presence on social media by far.
Did you hear the LeBron James Kevin Durant rap?
Yes, that was pretty good too.
Dude,
I didn't hate it.
Kevin Durant can rap.
Yeah,
really. I thought that was like their intro to like them like coming in and having a bad round.
Even that, I think like these guys all want to make their own personal brand. Is LeBron maybe something that isn't that something that players want, because then it's all LeBron and then everything you do is tied to him. What does he think about this? Do players maybe want to just keep going their own personal brand? I'm not saying this is the death of the super team, even though I would love that, because I mean the NBA is still really fun, but still, I mean, maybe you have guys like Jimmy Butler and Kyrie because they know they can get along and they're kind of in that same stratosphere where one doesn't overshadow the other.
Yeah.
Whereas you go with LeBron, he's all the way up here. Great radio, but I mean, then you're over in this lower tier. I mean, LeBron's the top of the mountain, and you're here somewhere in the middle as far as star power, and then you get buried even deeper. So I feel like maybe if LeBron gets a good roster around him in LA, it's going to have to be through the guys the Lakers develop almost.
So to your point of the death of the super team, this is something that I've been saying for a while, and something that it's my like future prediction for the NBA. So think about like the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s NBA basketball. It was almost all, Bird Magic. It was two teams every year that you knew one of them was going to win the ring, and then finally they played each other in the championship, whatever year that was. I can't remember off the top of my head. But not just that, but there was a few years like in the early 80s, a little bit in the 90s, and then although those Bulls dominated those years, there was really good teams that they would just build teams to try to take down the Bulls, and then nobody ever really did until Jordan was gone for 2 years, and then after Jordan retired for the second time. But during those years, you had such good teams. I think that's exactly what's happening with the NBA right now. Is that eventually this Warriors team is going to have to fall apart because somebody's going to realize I can get paid somewhere else.
It's probably going to be Klay Thompson this year.
I would agree.
I actually feel as though Klay Thompson would be the one more willing to stay. I feel between him and Draymond, if either of them have to choose.
Well, Draymond's on for the next 3 years, isn't he?
Is he?
Like, didn't he? Because I think he signed like a 5-year deal in like 2016.
Oh,
or something.
well,
I know Steph's locked down the longest.
Yeah, Steph's definitely.
And then I want to say KD and Draymond are very similarly in it for the long haul. I
know Klay is out after this. I think this is his final year under contract. I think KD can opt out. I think he's got that kind of LeBron type deal where he can opt out every year.
Okay. But I think that I don't know how the team falls apart, and I'm not here to make that prediction, but once they do, there will be so many teams that built themselves up to like stop the Warriors that we're going to see some really, really fun and competitive basketball at the same time that like LeBron James is going to ender twilight years, maybe even retire at this, like when this is all going down.
2 retirements
and,
like Jordan probably.
And you're going to see 3 retirements. 4 if you count baseball.
That's a good point.
But I think that maybe it's not this year, although I think the Celtics have a shot. And maybe it's not next year because maybe Clay decides to stick around and I don't know how it blows up. But once that Warriors team deteriorates and once somebody else wins a championship, I mean, already the East is up for grabs and you have, the Raptors, the Celtics, the 76ers, the Bucks are on the come up.
Indiana.
The Pacers gave the Cavaliers the run for their money. You have competition there and the West is so freaking good that it's not the NBA where you don't know who the champion's going to be every year. Unfortunately, like we probably know it's going to be the Warriors, or when it was the Cavaliers, we knew who they're going to play in the finals. But now, like once the playoff starts, you don't have bad matchups anymore.
Sure.
Whereas honestly, like when the Warriors, dynasty started, I feel
they were rolling everyone over.
And I feel like the 6, 7, 8 seeds were always kind of like, meh. Now you looked at this last year, I mean, it was up until the last like 5 games at the very end of the season. It was going back and forth on who was the 3 seed in the West. You could become the 8 seed in the West.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that competition level of basketball is coming, and I think it's really exciting. So the death of the super team may be the case, but I think the superstars pairing up isn't going to stop, and it's going to make basketball a lot of fun to watch.
And I mean, you saw it in the playoffs too. I mean, like for the most part, I felt as though last year's playoffs, I mean, each series was filled to the brim with, game 7s and close matchups and just star power.
Last year was the first year I paid attention to the NBA playoffs in like 2 or 3 years because I felt like there was just a lot of individual talent to watch, and there was a lot of just good matchups that ended up going 5 or 6 or 7 games instead of just 4 or 5. So I think the NBA is getting better. I think there's a lot of teams. I think there's just a lot more talent to go around too.
Yeah.
But back to the Jimmy Butler thing, what does Minnesota do now? Do you keep him and just kind of keep him unhappy and know that he's not giving you his all? Or do you because
I think
kudos to the Bulls because they saw this coming. Because everyone was saying the Bulls know they're going to lose him. They want to trade him now while he still has control and they can get the most for him.
R.I.P. the Timber Bulls, man.
Yeah, I think part of the onus, really, like the crazy part is I feel like most of this falls on Thibodeau. Like I think
Jimmy Butler's sick of him.
Yeah, I feel like Butler, initially thought like, hey, this is a good idea, new fresh start. I'll be
more
able to
talent.
play with Towns, Wiggins, and that was just that. I don't know how, like, I have no idea what the personal dynamic of each of these relationships are. But I don't know what Jimmy Butler's relationship is with Derrick Rose, and I know they had a falling out. And those are Thibodeau's like star pupils, basically.
Right. Yeah.
But then
he ran both of them into the ground.
I feel like bringing back Dang, having Taj on the team. I feel like Butler kind of didn't want to be too involved.
Right.
With
He felt the
I'm
walls
on the
closing
Bulls again.
Right.
Yeah. So I feel like he just decided it was time.
I think the Dang move was the Timberwolves like last ditch effort of like, come on, like please stick around, like we'll give you another bowl.
And like, why would you think that would work? Because that's the situation he was done. Right? Yeah.
I just think that was in their mindset. If we bring in a former Bull, like he'll definitely want to stick around.
And you also do have to keep in mind that Tom Thibodeau is the only person making like personnel decisions. Behind closed doors, Butler could be like, yo, you need to go after this guy. And then Tom Thibodeau's just like, I'll give you Dang.
Or conversely, consider this.
I think to your point of what you do if you're the T-Wolves, I think you start the season with him. Because I think that you need to give him a shot to I think you start the season with him, and if you guys come out super hot the first 30 games, you have 8, if you have 20 wins or something like that, just ballparking here, you can say to him like, listen, like this team can be really good with you still here, because it's true, you still have Karl Anthony Towns, you still have Andrew Wiggins, you still have I think and something I have talked about with other people outside the show is when that first roster comes off and those, the Timber Bulls that I made the comment of, the former Bulls that are there, I think they all understand Thibodeau's system.
Yeah.
So it's like taking a talent off the floor and then putting people that know the system on there is almost like, okay, rest up your starters, but you'll still have somebody that can contribute while you're out.
They could still run the system.
Exactly. So that's why I think the T-Wolves do look so dangerous, and then they can sit Jimmy Butler down and say, listen, like, this is how good this team can be. Like, I know that there are things that you want us to change, and maybe they do change them or maybe they don't, but at least start the season with them. And then if things really are not going well, or if Jimmy Butler, all of a sudden looks like he's a locker room issue, and then teams start to be afraid of that. So you gotta kind of walk that line, but you gotta start the season with them. I mean, he's a former All-Star, and he's in his prime right now with you too. So if you're serious about contending, you need him still there.
Yeah, and I also feel as though the relationship with, unless they're telling us, they just haven't told us the full rundown of everything that goes on in Minnesota. I don't think that Jimmy Butler's relationship with Thibodeau is in a point where it's of no return.
Yeah.
So if I'm Minnesota, I'm also not in a rush to send him.
Right, we could only be getting part of the story here. We might only be getting the part that says, because Jimmy Butler could have went in that meeting and said, all right, this needs to happen and this needs to happen, and then I'll consider sticking around, but we need to make some personnel calls or trade me. And we might only be hearing the or trade me part.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it might not be all hope is lost. There was probably a situation in which he could stay. But, if someone this is probably a long shot, but if someone like the Thunder call you up and offer you a decent package, I don't know what their picks or whatever looks like. I'm just considering because Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and Jimmy Butler would be really cool together. But if someone who's hoping, who just needs that star, someone like Utah calls you up and you pair Donovan Mitchell and Jimmy Butler together, you have to consider it, right? You have to consider at least dealing him and just getting that maximum return in the event he does both.
And I think he wanted to avoid the Kawhi situation where you say that you want one team and one team alone, and then they ship you off to another country.
Well, I feel partially the Kawhi situation, and this is just a side note. I feel like the Kawhi situation in part was also driven extremely by pettiness. There's no way Greg Popovich was not.
Which is why it was funny when you guys brought up earlier, what if Jimmy Butler goes to the Lakers, and then you just isolate Kawhi Leonard from that equation entirely and just leave him in Canada. Yeah. And that would be that would make Greg Popovich so happy. Be you wanted to go to LA, so I sent you to Toronto, and they found a better you to put in LA.
Stay there.
Better guy to replace you with.
Yeah, that's an unbelievable situation. Before we end here, Nathan and I, Tommy's not here, RIP for this week, but we'll do our locks of the week still. Last week mine was the Chargers, and that hit, so I think I was the only one we said right.
Yeah, you were.
So a lot of these lines, I'm not sure. I want to go with the Bears -6.5 against the Cardinals because the Cardinals are the worst team arguably in the league. But there's something about this Steelers -1 against the Buccaneers that's kind of
don't be fooled by -1s. I was so confident about the Patriots against the Jaguars, and I was just so wrong.
So here was my thing. I was looking at that, and then I looked a little bit to my right and saw the over/under at 54, and that
with the Bears versus
with the Steelers and Buccaneers in Tampa. That over, I can see a world where that hits because the way Ryan Fitzpatrick has been playing, and we know what the Steelers' offense is capable of, I feel like that's not completely outside the realm of possibility. I think for that over to hit at 54.
I think the over I'd be most confident in is New Orleans, Atlanta. The over is 53. I know it's high, but I think that game's going to be a shootout.
Those are two very high-powered offenses. I also like the line for that, too. I believe the New Orleans +3. I think New Orleans has played better than they've showed. I think their defense is a lot better than they showed in week 1. I think Fitzpatrick just kind of came out and shocked everyone. I don't hate New Orleans +3 either. That's very interesting. And the Packers -3 against Washington's also another interesting one.
Yeah, I'm curious. Aaron Rodgers, I think, is like 80-85% right now.
Yeah.
And the Redskins, through 2 games this season, have the best pass defense in the NFL. I don't know where that came from or what the scenarios that have brought that about are. And I don't think
Josh Norman's still there, but I think
one
corner,
it's the Redskins. I don't know. I'm surprised you went NFL on me because I had a college football lock of the week.
Okay.
It was the TCU line. Let me pull it up, see if it's changed at all.
Who do they play?
They're playing Texas, and
Okay.
so the line is close because Texas just beat USC.
Right.
But I don't
Texas
think
is perpetually.
I don't think Texas is that good.
unreliable.
I think they just beat USC on a national stage, and
USC with a freshman quarterback.
it's TSU -3. It's at Texas, but I think TCU is the real
state.
deal. TCU
Same
covered
state.
against Ohio State for me last weekend.
I don't hate that either.
I actually would
Interesting.
go to say that I love it.
That's interesting. All right. Well, before we end here, I have one thing that I want to say about the Bears. They beat the Seahawks. Defense was ferocious. They were unbelievable. But there's one thing that I want to say. In this house, we respect Mitch Trubisky, and we respect that he needs time to develop. We acknowledge that he's had 14 career starts. We do not compare Mitch Trubisky to Patrick Mahomes in this house because Patrick Mahomes had a full year to learn an offense, a full year to sit behind Alex Smith, and learn from Alex Smith, who's arguably a top 15 quarterback in the league, I would say.
I'd say 15.
So
I'd be comfortable saying
Meanwhile, Trubisky's in Chicago with John Fox's offense and learning from Mike Glennon and Mark Sanchez. That's like trying to learn calculus from your 4-year-old nephew and then trying to learn it from a college professor. Like that's just two of the completely different scenarios. Trubisky will be good. I'm sick and tired of seeing people say, oh, he's not going to be that good. He can't make this throw or that throw. Give the dude some time. He's in his first year of a new offense. He has some weapons. Yes, he's still building chemistry. Look at the progression from week 1 to week 2. You watch the film, there's a lot to like there. I think he did a lot of things really well. If you want to criticize Trubisky and say he's a bust or they need to get rid of him, they need to start looking at Will Grier. I love Will Grier. I think he's great. But come to me in week 10 or 11 with those takes and not week 2 of this new offense. And I'm sick of it.
Right now, Mitch Trubisky is making throws that a college quarterback should make, and he is developing to the point that by the end of the season, I expect him to be able to make throws that NFL quarterbacks can make.
Sure.
Because, like you said, people look at him as a second-year quarterback and forget that was start 14.
14 starts.
And now two head coaches in his 2 years.
Right.
So there's a lot going on for him to understand.
There should be a lot more wiggle room.
He got all new weapons in the offseason too, and everybody expected them to just like click right away, and that's just not the reality of football. So Packers fan right here, completely agree with you. Mitch is the answer for the Bears.
I agree. Okay, good. All right. Well, that'll do it for us. Thank you to Jared and Gavin again for coming in, filling in for us. Really appreciate it. Tomorrow, the Tuesday, Thursday crew will be back. Eli, Isaac, Brian, Nathan's still here. Shout out. He was the only regular that came through. He's the only one I can count on. Tommy's a flake. But thank you all for hanging out with us. We will be back on Monday to tell you about Illinois. In the meantime, tune in for those guys on Tuesday and Thursday.
Wait, can I say it?
Sure.
I'll say it.
Sure, I'll do it. Yeah, because Alex isn't here. I've been producing today. That's why the production's been a little not as good as usual. But sure, Nathan, send us out of here.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. On behalf of Illini Drive, Jake, hit the music.
Absolutely.